called Brion and one is called Montana. Any other beer they tell you is local is not. If you want to get a local liqueur, you would go for the Curacao liqueur. Now the only original Curacao liqueur is in a round bottle with a long neck. All the other Curacao liqueurs are copycats. And we cannot copyright Curacao liqueur, the name, because you cannot copyright the name of a country or an island. So therefore, there's lots of copycats that we cannot stop. Now the Curacao liqueur is actually based on something that the Spaniards brought with them in 1499. They brought Valencia oranges and they planted orchards because they wanted their sailors to have oranges to eat. Well, with this arid climate and the soil not being very fertile in most places, the fruit that those trees bore were very bitter and not very juicy at all. So they didn't do a whole lot with those orchards. Only in places with water wells did they grow decently, until a pharmacist in the late 19th century started experimenting with those oranges, and he started drying the peel of the orange, and then he noticed a very nice aroma coming from the peel of the orange, and that's how he came to make the formula of the Curacao liqueur. So the basic ingredient, most essential one of the Curacao liqueur is actually the local orange, which we now call the La Raja. Then I have to disappoint you and tell you that Curacao liqueur originally is clear. So if you find it in a blue version, orange version, red or green, they are all just food coloring added to the product. So the real original is just white or clear. So guys, from here you can see the refinery chimneys and also a hill, a whitish color hill that is the tabletop mountain, again very pretentious. It's not higher than 700 feet. It used to look like a mesa in the southwest of the United States. However, in 1830 they found that that table was covered with phosphate. You could either call it phosphate or guano. In any case, it's bird droppings. And they excavated that hill for many, many decades until the hill is only a frame of what it is now. The only thing they can get out of that hill now is a type of sand that you can use to blow glass. And you also get a type of marble which is pink. We call it the Curacao marble. So now only a frame of what it used to be. And then the chimneys of the refinery, they're not smoking because our lease with the Venezuelan State Oil Company expired at the end of 2019. We started looking for a new operator in 2015, but we haven't been able to find an operator yet. Probably the reason for that is that in the meantime, there's been some court cases and some verdicts that say that if this plant does not abide by the pollution standards, then they will get a hefty multi-million-dollar fine. And so we think that any new operator will know that he has to invest about $500 million US to get the refinery up to the environmental standards. So we think that might be the reason why no other operator wants to take over the plant. But way before 2019 ended, we already had a problem with the supply of crude oil, because Venezuela was not extracting as much oil as they did petroleum they did before. For a long time also, since World War II, we were an island that almost invented offshore banking, in the sense that when the Germans invaded the Netherlands already had some quite large multinationals, and their multinationals needed to be protected from the Germans. And so they moved the seat of these multinationals to Curacao and gave them residence here, even though the company itself was in the Netherlands over in Europe. And that's how some notaries discovered this loophole in the law, and that's how our trust business started. We hardly have any trust business left, because we got onto the gray list with the danger of being on the blacklist. So for the last 20 years, we've been downscaling, and now actually you cannot open a bank account here if you're not a legal resident.
Да.
So I told you before about the coral stones that all of our buildings that were built before the 20th century were made of. As long as you build your even the slave walls, if you build something from coral stone, as long as you don't plaster the wall, your wall will be intact centuries later. However, if you decide to make a very nice house and you plaster the walls, then the salt that is contained within the coral stone will have a effect. There's a chemical reaction that happens within the wall because of the entrapment of the salt, and in Dutch they call that wall cancer. And when that starts happening, the paint on your wall starts fading, and then the wall starts crumbling. I don't know if you noticed that in the kitchen of the house where we entered, where the gallery was at, but the plaster will actually start crumbling, and that is that needs to be replastered every 2.5 years, and you need to repaint your walls every 6 to 8 months because of that chemical reaction. So Curacao has 870 historical buildings, and that's why we're on the UNESCO World Heritage List. And all these 870 buildings were built with coral stone. So all of them extremely expensive to renovate all the time. You will find a lot of these historical buildings in our downtown. And the downtown is just across the entrance of the harbor. So not a long walk for you. If your ship will be in the harbor for a couple of hours, I would encourage you to visit our downtown area, because Curacao is very unique because of all those historical buildings. They kind of look like Amsterdam with candy colors.
Прям по дороге едет сюда. Машина. Не контролирует. Где хотел, там выехал.
you may wonder why all our buildings have those very candy colors.
Значит, надо помазаться.
Before
Сметаной.
1816, our buildings were either whitewashed or they had a ochre yellow color.
Вот госпиталь, да?
Well, we had a governor in 1816 who suffered from migraines. His doctor convinced him that the migraines came from the glare of the sun on the mostly white buildings. He believed the doctor, and so he decreed the next day that we were to have no whitewashed buildings within the city walls anymore. And so people found themselves obligated to paint their buildings. Well, legend has it that when he died, they found documents on this governor that said that he was part shareholder of a paint factory.
Wow. What factory? Oh. Короче, был здесь governor один, и он имел много головной боли.
So there's a tamarind tree here on the left of the, where you see the red car, and you see the lady selling fruit.
Видишь, фрукты подают.
All our fresh produce, well, let's say 90% of our fresh produce is imported. We used to get boats every day of the year for more than 100 years from Venezuela bringing us our fresh produce. However, 3 years ago, the president of Venezuela decided that our 3 islands were very dangerous, and he closed the border with us. So now we need to import even the local fruits from other islands that are much farther away, and they have to come in through cooled containers. So we import from building materials to cars to furniture to clothing and to even our food. It makes this a very expensive island. And then on top of that, the water has to be desalinated. That's also an expensive process. And then we generate energy with diesel engines, and for 25% with those windmills that you saw over on the north coast.
Она говорит, много лет Венесуэла поставляла им фрукты, а сейчас 3 года назад они перестали. Там governor решил, что они больше не будут делать. Теперь им нужно обменивать машины, обменивать все с другими дальше островами, чтобы получить фрукты. И фрукты приходят в холодных контейнерах. Вот что она сказала. Венесуэла больше ничего не дает. Ты просто не успела дослушать ее.
I haven't had that question yet on this bus, but a lot of people want to know what our gasoline costs. And our gasoline costs about $4.50 for a gallon.
Just как почти как у нас уже. Мы тут, да, $3.80 платим. Ну так вот, насчет этого. Что этот governor, у него головные боли были. И доктор ему сказал, что у тебя головные боли от солнца и белых домов.
Да.
И он поставил это правило, он поверил этому доктору, поставил правило по всему этому острову, везде.
Красить
И по
дома.
другим, а все дома должны быть покрашены, ни одного белого дома, чтобы больше не было на острове. И, в общем, ну как, заставили всех покрасить дома.
So there's a large yellow building on the left with a black rooftop.
Вон.
That used to be a boarding school for girls run by the nuns.
Монастырь.
And the girls were coming from Colombia and Venezuela. Only very rich girls were sent over. They closed the boarding school, and now that is our largest nursing home.
Nursing home теперь. Раньше был монастырь, а теперь nursing home. Потому что Венесуэла
course, the nuns kept the girls safe, not only from danger, but also from the boys, right?
Так
That's what the nuns do.
рассказать эту историю, а когда губернатор умер, все узнали, что он, оказывается, имел очень много стаков.
So here we have a bakery
покраски.
on the corner, and there's a fight going on because our government has a maximum price on certain things, one of which is a plain loaf of white bread. And by now the prices of all the ingredients have gone up such that the bakers are saying that the ingredients to make the bread is actually cost more than what they're allowed to sell the loaf of bread for. So they want to raise the price of the bread, and the government doesn't want them to. The government doesn't want the poor people to have to pay a high price for bread. And the bakers are saying, I'm not gonna make bread if I'm losing money on the bread. So I understand. I don't know what the verdict is yet, but they were threatening to stop making the plain white loaf of bread.
Чтобы здесь хлеб испечь, ингредиенты стоят больше, чем они разрешают продавать хлеб за цену. И
Невыгодно.
байкеры говорят, что мы не можем терять деньги, наши продукты, чтобы испечь хлеб, дороже стоят, чем ты нам разрешаешь
Once we
хлеб
reach
продавать.
the top of this hill,
А государство говорит,
you will be able to see your ship very nicely. So if you want to take a picture, have your cameras ready on the right hand side of the bus.
терять деньги.